Thank you very much. That's the last presentation of the session. Very glad to present you some brand new work with Aurélien and Jean-Marie. And if you have friends or colleagues who think that wine economics is not a serious topic, and you still have to convince them, then you can connect to and say, you know, we can even do public economics and inequality economics, a more dramatic and tragic topic than the usual light tune and tone of the other paper that we had in the session. So we're going to talk about inequality, and the idea is to use fine wine price to reveal top income driven inequality over the long run. So, as you know, there's a big surge in inequality driven by top incomes in the world. There's a lot of evidence in the recent years. I mentioned the pioneering work by Kuznets and Atkinson and others, but from all the data on tax records by Piketty, collected by Piketty, Atkinson and others, we know now, and we document this big surge in world inequality. Well, in national inequality, but really all over the world. One of the aspects of that work is that usually you have data, tax data, only on the recent period. Often the series starts in 1913, sometime a bit later. It's full of holes, like French cheese, and then there's nothing you can really say about the past, except when you have this kind of cadastre or property tax records for the old times, but that's more regarding wealth inequality than income inequality. So the idea is that if top wines reveal the top income, then we can go a long way in the past because we have prices of top wines for over the long period. So that's an example of that. It's very preliminary work. Again, top incomes people consume the most expensive goods, and Bordeaux wine, providing some of the most expensive wine in the world, would be a very good example. If you assume production fixed, which is not the case, but we will control for that, then fine wine prices from Bordeaux must reflect to some extent world top incomes. And that's going to be a new measure of inequality for the top incomes based on the Bordeaux first growth prices since 1818. I'll skip that. So the framework is extremely simple. You have an inverse demand function. Here also a function of income. You have a market equilibrium. So basically, if you assume that supply is fixed, and you put some very simple linear form on that inverse demand function, then you have a relationship between price and income. Once again, assuming production fixed. So you can look at the evolution of prices in relation to income. If people start to consume Lafite or Latour or Margaux when they earn a certain, like 2 million per year or 500,000 per year, I don't know, then you can actually not get exactly that level, but you can actually get the ratio of incomes, or between top income and low income, by looking at the ratio between the top wine prices and some basic price. The price for a basic wine, and for that we'll just use CPI or usual consumer price indices. So the data are nominal prices by tonneau of the Grand Cru over that period from the archives of Bordeaux, and that's collected by Chevet and his team, and that all comes from the brokers Tastet and Lawton, and it's very consistent with the price data you got in the famous book of Penning Roswell, at least for the overlapping period. And we use standard cost of living indices to cover this long period of 2 centuries. That's the price here in black of the first growth of the Premier Grand Cru. That's in purple the price of the 5th Grand Cru, of the 5th growth. And the green here is the CPI. So basically what you see is, of course, the big rise in prices in the recent period, but what we are interested in is basically the gap between these things, between the top wines and the slightly lower wines or the CPI. And we see that this segment reduces over time and start to increase over time, which gives you a flavor of what's going to be the profile of our inequality measure. If I take the ratio of the log price first growth over the CPI, and I would focus on the CPI of the countries that are relevant. These are the countries that import Bordeaux wine, or I put here the country where we export Bordeaux wine. Then I get something like this. I get a rise in inequality in the first half of the 19th century, then a decline all the way, and a rise in the recent years. But of course, there's a lot of hams and so on, so we try to correct for some of these things. So I'm going to do 3 exercises of validation. The first one is to say, we know a bit what's going on. I mean, there's phylloxera, so maybe there was my assumption that quantity was fixed is wrong. There's a lot of speculation during the Second World War. There are other things going on. So I take the ratio of a regression of this inequality measure that we've got on the myths for the wars, on this period before the oil crisis that correspond to overpriced vintages, tariffs, production, phylloxera period, etc. And then I take the residual of that regression, that is the inequality measure smooth from all these things. Then I'll get the dotted line here, which is a bit more regular and without the humps that correspond to this explain elements over time. The second validation is, of course, to compare to Piketty's result and this now famous world inequality database. You know that Piketty and Atkinson have now provided a website where you have top income inequality measures for many countries. So we look at the top income shares, so either the top 1% rich people or the top 10% of the main importing countries. And to define main importing countries, we use the series of Kim Anderson and Vincent Pigna in order to calculate. So what we do is, for instance, we take the top 1% share of US, Germany, the UK, etc., and we weight this measure by the weights that this country represents in importation of Bordeaux wine. When you do that, you get this usual. Well, before I do that, I show you the profile. For instance, you've got the US here. So that's the typical Atkinson and Piketty series. So you've got a decline in inequality. I take the recent period because, again, it's full of holes for the early period. So you've got, for instance, the Netherlands here, inequality go down, and then they start to go up. Sweden go down and go up. Germany go down and go up, the US go down and go up. So there's always this U-shaped thing. But we try to take the average of that, again weighted by the export volumes for all these countries. And that's this little purple bubbles that you can see here. That's this kind of average measure here. Now if we put the two things together, then we get that. This is the world inequality database measure that I've just shown you, weighted by the export volumes. And this is our new measure based on basically the real price of the top wines of Bordeaux. And of course, the fit will never get perfect, but I mean, at least the overall trend, with going down here and around in the 60s, there's a little hump here, and then the rising inequality that we witnessed in the recent period, it gets closer, and the correlation between the two measures is 0.6. Maybe we should use a non-linear correlation measure than linear, but at least it's a very good start to somehow calibrate or fit the thing. The last thing I'd like to show you is that there is some information about the past in terms of income inequality, looking at more general measure of inequality. One is the Gini index, and you've got all this historical work by World Bank guys like Milanovic or other people like Lindert. And here's for the UK and the United States. So if we consider the period that is same as ours, so the 19th century and the 20th century, what you see is some kind of inverted U-shape pattern of inequality, and in the recent period, a rebound and a rise in inequality. Same for the US. And if you check basically what our measure looks like, it's more or less the same pattern. So the Gini profile is somehow, it's not exactly the same form of inequality because it takes the whole population and not just the top income versus the rest, but that goes the same way, which is very reassuring. So I'll conclude. Real price of fine wines are used here to reveal top income level or top income inequality measures. This is very preliminary, but we are robust to correction to many different types of observed events and the production level in the first regression that I mentioned. We broadly validate it against the Piketty series, and we are kind of consistent with a long-term historical profile of the Gini measure. There's a lot to be done still to refine this exercise, but I think we have an interesting material, and then we can try to explain, now to put a story on what's going on in the 19th century. Once again, I mean, nobody's got really long-term inequality, income inequality data, and we have now some kind of measure of what's going on in the 19th century. We have to now talk with historians and put a more qualitative story on this pattern. I should stop so that we can go for lunch.